Jin straightened his uniform as he walked through the crystal corridors of Unity Station. The massive space station orbited a neutron star, and through the transparent walls, he could see dozens of alien ships docked at various ports. Some looked like living organisms. Others were geometric shapes that hurt to look at for too long. After 70 years, humanity still had the least impressive ships in the Galactic Union. "Ambassador, the council meeting starts in 10 minutes, said, matching his pace. She carried a data tablet filled with treaty proposals and compromise language. They had been working on the agricultural rights agreement for 6 months. 6 months of careful words and endless patience. "Let me guess," Jin said quietly. "They want another revision." Nodded. "They say our proposal is too aggressive. They suggested we use firmly request instead of strongly advocate." Jin wanted to laugh, but he kept his face neutral. This was the game. Humanity had fought 2 world wars, survived nuclear weapons, and clawed their way to the stars. But here, they had to smile and say please. They had to prove they were civilized. The council chamber was enormous. Representatives from 47 species sat in a circular arrangement. Some breathed methane and sat in sealed tanks. Others floated in anti-gravity fields. The elders, 3 ancient beings who had founded the Union 12,000 years ago, watched from elevated platforms. "The human delegation may present their proposal," one elder said. Its voice came through translators, sounding like wind chimes. Jin stood and began his carefully prepared speech about trade routes and resource sharing. He had given speeches like this hundreds of times. Every word was chosen to be non-threatening. Every gesture was rehearsed to show respect. Halfway through his presentation, the chamber's communication system interrupted. A priority signal. The room fell silent. Appeared on the holographic display. The image quality was poor, breaking up with static. There were peaceful farmers, covered in soft fur and large, gentle eyes. This one was bleeding. "Please anyone," they said. "They came from nowhere. Though they're killing everyone. Verdun Tii needs help, our children." The transmission cut off. Jin felt his stomach turn to ice. He looked around the chamber. Surely someone would act immediately. Surely this was what the Union existed for. "The hegemony is not a Union member," one elder said calmly. "This is an external matter." "External?" Jin couldn't keep the shock from his voice. "People are dying right now." "We must follow proper channels," a representative said. "We should form a committee to investigate the claim and draft a response." "A committee," whispered beside him. "It will take weeks." Jin requested an emergency vote for immediate intervention. Earth would send ships, others could join. The vote failed. 41 species voted no. Only 4 voted yes. The reasons were always the same. Too expensive, too risky, not our jurisdiction. We must consider all perspectives. Captain received the order to stand down while his ship was still 3 jumps away from Verdun Tii. He stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, staring at the message on his screen. His crew of 200 waited for his command. "Sir," Lieutenant Bai said, "we could be there in 6 hours." Had fought in the Earth-Mars conflicts before humanity joined the Union. He had seen war, but he had also taken an oath when Earth joined the Union. Follow their rules, show restraint, be civilized. "Maintain position," he said, and the words tasted like poison. "Monitor all communications from Verdun Tii." For 6 days they monitored. Bai recorded every intercepted transmission. They heard the screaming. They heard parents trying to hide their children. They heard the methodical destruction of hospitals, schools, and shelters. They weren't just invading, they were erasing. On the 2nd day, a tactical officer calculated that the Indomitable alone could have neutralized the fleet with minimal casualties. By the 4th day, they had lost count of how many voices had gone silent. When the transmissions finally stopped, Bai's hands shook as she compiled the final report. 4 million dead. An entire colony wiped out in less than a week. The Galactic Union issued a formal statement of concern. They demanded the explain their actions. They proposed forming a delegation to negotiate reparations. The entire process would take approximately 4 months. Jin returned to the council chamber. He didn't bring prepared remarks this time. He simply played Bai's recordings. The screams of children echoed through the vast chamber. Representatives shifted uncomfortably. Some left. "You've made your point, Ambassador," an elder said. "This is tragic, but we must respond appropriately." "Appropriately," Jin repeated. He looked at each representative. Some met his eyes, most looked away. 4 million people died while you debated word choices. How many more will die while you form committees? The Union has maintained peace for thousands of years through careful diplomacy, the elder explained. Your species is young. You don't understand the complexity. I understand that you had the power to save them, Jin said. His voice was quiet now, which made it more frightening. Earth proposed immediate intervention. You voted it down. I want that recorded. When the next genocide happens, when more innocent people are slaughtered because you couldn't be bothered to act, I want everyone to remember that you chose this. The council erupted in protests. They accused him of being emotional, uncivilized, a warmonger, all the things they had called humanity when they first arrived. Jin and returned to the human quarter of Unity Station. Earth's delegation was small, only 30 people total. They gathered in the conference room. They're drafting a censure against you, said. They might ask Earth to replace you as ambassador. Good, Jin said. Let them. I'm done playing this game. What do we do? Asked one of the junior diplomats. Jin looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the survivors were burying their dead. They were celebrating their victory, and the Galactic Union was congratulating itself on maintaining proper diplomatic procedures. We wait, Jin said, and we document everything, because this will happen again. They learn they can commit genocide without consequences. Others will learn the same lesson. And when it happens again, when the Union does nothing again, we'll know exactly what kind of civilization we're dealing with. 3 months passed. The Union negotiated with the. They agreed on reparations, a small payment for 4 million lives. The survivors lived in refugee camps. Earth sent aid workers and supplies. Captain's ship delivered food and medicine, though it felt like trying to bail out the ocean with a cup. Then the long-range sensors picked up massive energy signatures near space. The Peaceful, with their 9 billion people spread across a beautiful ocean world. The fleet was heading straight for them. This time, Admiral Dongmin on Earth didn't wait for Union approval. This time, the orders came through coded channels, unsigned but unmistakable. Captain received his new orders on his private terminal. Just one line, protect the, use any means necessary. He read it 3 times. Then he smiled for the first time in months. He called his senior officers to the bridge. Plot a jump to space, he said. Battle speed. And someone send a message to every Earthship in this sector. Tell them we're done asking permission. 16 Earthships dropped out of hyperspace above the. Captain saw the fleet immediately. 32 warships in orbit, their weapons hammering the ocean world below. Bright flashes marked where cities had been just hours before. They're targeting population centers, Bai said from her station. Hospitals, schools, residential zones. Any military targets? Asked. None, sir. They don't have a military. They're completely defenseless. Opened a channel to the other Earthships. 15 captains appeared on his screen, men and women he had trained with, fought beside, trusted completely. You all see what I see, he said. They are committing genocide. The Union told us to stand down and wait for diplomatic channels. I'm not waiting. If you want to follow orders and leave, I won't blame you, but I'm going in. No one left. 15 voices came back immediately. We're with you. No speeches, Captain Wu said from the Relentless. No warnings, we end this fast. The Earth fleet didn't hail the. They didn't demand surrender. They simply opened fire. They were experienced warriors. They had conquered dozens of worlds. But they had always fought civilized species who announced their intentions, who targeted only military vessels, who followed the ancient rules of warfare that the Union had established thousands of years ago. Humans had different rules. The Indomitable fired missiles that split into hundreds of smaller warheads, overwhelming the point defense systems. The Relentless executed a suicide burn straight through the enemy formation, weapons blazing from every angle. Lieutenant Bai coordinated attack patterns that the Union called unnecessarily aggressive and barbaric. A cruiser tried to retreat. The Earthships hunted it down. When a commander tried to surrender, offering to discuss terms, Captain's response was simple. You don't get terms, you get justice. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 32 warships were destroyed. The Earth fleet had lost 3 ships and taken heavy damage across the rest, but the bombardment of the had stopped. Dr. Sora arrived 2 days later with the medical fleet. She was a trauma surgeon who had volunteered for deep space assignment. She had treated casualties in the Mars conflicts and thought she had seen the worst humanity could do to itself. The survivors showed her she was wrong. The medical bay of her ship filled with children. They were amphibious, covered in scales that changed color with their emotions. Now they were all the same shade of gray, the color of shock and grief. How many? Sora asked her assistant. Estimates say 300 million dead in the first strike, he replied. But we saved the rest, because of our ships, because we didn't wait. Sora worked for 16 hours straight. She sutured wounds and set broken bones. She held dying and told them they weren't alone. And when she finally took a break, she found a quiet corner and cried. On Unity Station, the Galactic Union Council was in chaos. Ambassador Jin had been summoned to explain Earth's unauthorized military action. He arrived at the council chamber to find representatives shouting at each other. Some demanded sanctions against humanity. Others were silent, perhaps feeling shame. Jin didn't wait to be recognized. He walked to the center of the chamber and activated the holographic display. Footage from Verdun Tii appeared. 4 million corpses. Then footage from the cities burning from orbit. You asked me to explain our actions, Jin said. His voice was cold and precise. Here's my explanation. We saved 9 billion lives. We stopped a genocide while you were still forming committees. You violated Union law, an elder said. You acted without authorization. Your laws, Jin said, are designed to protect the guilty, not the innocent. Your process is more important to you than people's lives. This is an outrage, a representative shouted. You humans think you can ignore our rules. Jin had prepared this moment for weeks. He had consulted with Earth's government. The decision had been unanimous. You're right, he said. We do ignore your rules because your rules are worthless. You called us uncivilized when we arrived. You were right. We fought wars that nearly destroyed our planet. We did terrible things to each other. So when we came here, we tried to be like you. We tried to be civilized. We followed your rules and used your careful language. We waited for committees and respected proper channels. He pulled up the casualty numbers from Verdun Tii. 4 million dead while the Union debated. We tried to be civilized, Jin continued. But you've taught us that civilization is just a word you use to feel good about yourselves while others die. You have the power to stop genocides. You have the ships and weapons, but you choose committees instead. You choose process over people. So we're done pretending that your way is better. What are you saying? An elder asked. I'm saying that Earth formally withdraws from the Galactic Union, effective immediately. We tried your civilization. It doesn't work, so we'll do it our way. The chamber erupted. Representatives demanded he reconsider. They threatened economic sanctions and diplomatic isolation. They warned that humanity would face the galaxy alone. Jin let them shout. Then he held up his hand, and something in his expression made them go quiet. "You think we're afraid of being alone?" he asked. "We came from a planet where we nearly destroyed ourselves. We know what real fear looks like. We know what real consequences are. And we know something you've forgotten. There are things worth fighting for, worth dying for, worth being called uncivilized for." He looked at each representative, one by one. "The children on Verdun Tii called for help and you debated proper procedure. They were being slaughtered and you wanted to negotiate. You think we're the barbarians. Look in a mirror. We're just the only ones honest about what needs to be done." Gathered the human delegation. They packed their belongings and prepared to leave Unity Station. Some of the younger diplomats looked worried. "What happens now?" one asked. "Now we stop apologizing for being human," said. As they walked through the corridors toward the docking bay, something unexpected happened. A stepped out from a side passage. Then others. Species that had lost homes, families, entire worlds to violence that the Union ignored. They didn't say anything. They just watched the humans pass. And as Jin walked by, he saw something in their eyes. Not fear, not anger, hope. Captain received new orders while in orbit over the Earth was establishing a military command independent of the Union. They were calling it the Outer Territories Protection Force. Any species facing existential threat could request aid. No committees, no bureaucracy, just immediate response. "Will anyone actually ask for our help?" Bai wondered. "We just burned every bridge with the Union." "They'll ask," said, watching his crew repair battle damage. 3 ships lost, 87 people dead, but 9 billion saved. When they come for them, when the Union tells them to wait for proper channels, they'll remember who actually showed up. On Earth, the news channels showed footage of the Battle of Space. Crowds gathered in cities across the planet. Some protested, saying humanity was becoming the warmongers the galaxy feared. Others celebrated, saying Earth had finally stopped bowing to those who valued procedure over lives. Admiral Dongmin addressed the planet from military command in Geneva. "We did not choose this path lightly," he said. "We wanted to be part of the galactic community. We wanted to prove we had evolved beyond our violent past. But we learned something important. Being civilized doesn't mean being passive. It means protecting those who cannot protect themselves. If that makes us barbarians in the Union's eyes, so be it. We'll be the barbarians who actually save lives." The transmission ended. Across Earth, military recruitment offices saw lines stretching for blocks. The Outer Territories Protection Force would need ships, soldiers, and support staff. Humanity was preparing for war. Not conquest, not expansion, but to stand between the predators and their prey. In space above the Dr. Sora worked through another shift. A young child held her hand, scales turning from gray to a tentative blue. "You saved us," the child said through a translator. Sora smiled, exhausted. "That's what humans do, it's who we are." Commander Wu walked through the corridors of Bulwark Station, humanity's new military headquarters. The station was built fast, assembled from prefabricated sections in just 3 months. It wasn't pretty, but it was functional. That was the human way now. No ceremony, no politics, just results. "Sir, we're receiving distress calls from 6 different systems," his communications officer reported. "All of them are species outside Union protection." "Show me the map," Wu said. The holographic display lit up with the local sector. Red markers indicated distress signals. Most were far from Union space. Small colonies, minor species, the kind of people who didn't matter to the galactic bureaucracy. "Deploy response teams to all 6, Wu ordered. "Standard protection protocols. And someone tell Admiral Dongmin we need more ships." Earth's shipyards were working around the clock now. Old warships from the Mars conflicts were being pulled from storage and upgraded. New designs were being rushed into production. Every ship that could fly was being armed and crewed. The hegemony, meanwhile, was preparing for total war. Their emperor gave speeches about teaching the primitive humans their place. They mobilized fleets from 60 worlds. They had been conquering for 1,000 years. They had professional soldiers, advanced weapons, and overwhelming numbers. They were about to learn that none of that mattered. Captain stood on the bridge of the rebuilt Indomitable. After the Battle of Space, his ship had been heavily damaged. The repairs took 2 months. Now she was back, stronger than before, with weapons the Union would have called illegal. Target identified, Bai said. Supply convoy, 12 cargo ships with 4 escort cruisers. They're carrying food and ammunition to their forward base at 7. Do they know we're here? No, sir. Our stealth systems are working perfectly. Smiled. The Union species fought by announcing themselves and engaging in honorable combat. Humans had learned long ago that honor didn't win wars. Effectiveness did. Fire when ready. The missiles struck before they even saw them coming. All 12 cargo ships were destroyed in the opening salvo. The escort cruisers tried to fight back, but they were designed to fight civilized enemies who attacked from the front. Human ships came from 6 directions at once, using the debris field for cover, executing maneuvers that would kill a pilot from the G-forces alone. 8 minutes later, it was over. The convoy was destroyed. The forward base at 7 would run out of supplies in 2 weeks. Jump coordinates locked, Bai said. Next target. The shipyard at Prime said. Let's make sure they can't build any replacements. This was the pattern across the war zone. Humans didn't fight fair. They didn't line up and trade shots. They struck supply lines. They hunted isolated ships. They used tactics from Earth's own brutal history, warfare methods that species who had known peace for thousands of years couldn't imagine. Major Rim led a special forces team into a command station. They infiltrated using stolen access codes, moved through the ventilation systems, and planted explosives at key structural points. The station was destroyed with all command staff aboard. The fleet in that sector lost all coordination and was picked apart by waiting Earth ships. Is this how humans always fight? One of Rim's soldiers asked after the mission. He was young, barely 20. In our old wars, we did worse, Rim said. At least now we're doing it for the right reasons. The galaxy watched in horror and fascination. The Galactic Union had always believed war was about honor and following rules. Humanity was showing them that war was about winning at any cost. The cost in human lives was high. Earth's smaller population meant every casualty hurt more, but humans kept fighting. Intelligence officer once sat in his office on Bulwark Station, reviewing intercepted communications. His job was to read the enemy's mail, and what he found was interesting. They're scared, he told Commander Wu. Listen to this transmission from an admiral to their high command. He says his forces have a 3-to-1 numerical advantage, but requests reinforcements before engaging human ships. They're developing a psychological fear of us. Good, Wu said. Fear makes mistakes. Mistakes get them killed. But the war was taking its toll on humanity too. Every week brought casualty reports. Ships lost. Soldiers killed. Entire crews who volunteered knowing they might not come back. Captain attended memorial services for people he had trained, fought beside, trusted. Lieutenant Bai kept a private list of all the names. It grew longer every day. The Galactic Union tried to negotiate a ceasefire. Ambassador Jin received the delegation in his new office on Bulwark Station. They offered to mediate between Earth and They promised fair terms and proper procedures. No, Jin said simply. You're destroying yourselves, an elder argued. Your casualties are unsustainable. They have greater numbers. This war cannot be won. We're not trying to win, Jin said. We're trying to make sure they can never do this again. There's a difference. You're becoming what you claim to fight against, the elder said. Warmongers, destroyers. Jin pulled up recent intelligence reports. They were planning to attack 4 more colonies after. We found the battle plans. 200 billion people marked for extermination. The Union was going to draft another strongly worded statement. We're stopping it. If that makes us warmongers, I can live with that. The delegation left empty-handed. The war continued. 6 months into the conflict, something changed. The stopped advancing. Their empire, which had been expanding for centuries, was now contracting. They pulled back fleets to defend their own worlds. They abandoned forward positions. They started talking about defense instead of conquest. On Earth, the news was met with cautious celebration. But Admiral Dongmin knew the hardest part was coming. One's intelligence team had located the Emperor and High Command. They were hiding in a fortified citadel on their capital world. The citadel is in the middle of city, one explained at the command briefing. Population 40 million civilians. Most of them are just workers' families, not soldiers. Can we strike the citadel without hitting the city? Commander Wu asked. Orbital bombardment would level everything within 10 kilometers. Chemical weapons would kill millions. A nuclear strike would be even worse. The only option is a ground assault. Insert special forces, breach the citadel, eliminate the command structure, extract. What's the survival rate for the insertion team? One was quiet for a moment. 12%, sir. The room went silent. Everyone understood what that meant. It was a suicide mission dressed up with optimistic math. I'll lead it, Lieutenant Bai said. She had been promoted after the Battle of Space but still served on ship. Give me 50 soldiers and we'll get it done. 50 isn't enough, Captain said. Then I need fewer people to die, sir. 300 soldiers volunteered. They knew the odds. They went anyway because that's what humans did. They volunteered for the impossible because someone had to. The team launched in stealth. They hit the atmosphere at speeds that should have torn the ships apart. They landed in the industrial district of city under cover of darkness. The plan was simple. Fast insertion, neutralize the guards, plant explosives, eliminate the Emperor and High Command, and extract before reinforcements arrived. It almost worked. They breached the citadel using shaped charges. Rim's team moved like ghosts through corridors that had never known intruders. They found the command chamber and opened fire. The Emperor died still sitting on his throne. But they activated their defense systems faster than expected. The escape routes collapsed. Reinforcements poured in from all sides. The extraction became a fighting retreat. Bai held the rear guard with 20 soldiers. She coordinated the retreat, called in covering fire from orbit, and bought time for the others to escape. Her final transmission was calm and professional. Package delivered. Mission complete. Tell Captain we stayed human. We protected the ones who mattered. The citadel exploded. The High Command was eliminated. Civilian casualties were 1,700. Tragically high by human standards, a miracle by the galaxy's calculations, but 73 human soldiers didn't come home. Captain stood on the bridge of the Indomitable reading Bai's final report. His hands shook. He had known her for 8 years, trained her, promoted her, watched her become one of the best officers in the fleet. Sir, his new tactical officer said quietly, we're receiving surrender requests from 12 systems. Without central command, their empire is falling apart. Accept their surrenders, said, his voice was rough. And make sure our forces treat prisoners according to Earth protocols. No revenge, no cruelty, we're not them. Even after everything they did. Especially after everything they did, that's what makes us different. The war was ending. But the cost was written in blood across dozens of worlds. Humanity had shown the galaxy what they were capable of. Now came the harder part, proving they were more than their capacity for violence. The memorial service on Bulwark Station was attended by 3,000 people. The walls displayed names of the fallen, 73 from the Citadel assault, 216 from ship losses, 308 from other operations. Each name represented a life, a family, a person who chose to fight. Captain stood at the podium. He had given speeches before, but this one was harder than all the others combined. He looked at the names scrolling on the screen behind him. Bai's name was there. So many others he had known. They volunteered, he said simply. Nobody forced them. They saw what needed to be done and they stepped forward. That's what humans do. We see a problem and we fix it, even when the cost is everything. In the audience, Dr. Sora wiped tears from her eyes. Her medical ships had treated thousands of wounded. She had saved many lives but lost some too. The ones she lost haunted her dreams. Young soldiers who died whispering about home. Pilots who didn't make it through surgery. Crew members who sacrificed themselves so others could escape. "Are we becoming monsters?" someone asked her after the service. It was one of her nurses, a young woman named who had signed up to save lives, not support a war. "I don't know," Sora admitted. "But I know this. Every child who's alive today is alive because we fought. Every survivor who has a future has it because humans said enough. Maybe that has to be enough." On Earth, the question was being asked more loudly. Counselor Mi Young led peace protests in Seoul. Thousands marched through the streets carrying signs that said, "Stop the war," and "We're better than this." "Look at what we've become," Mi Young said in a televised address. "We left the Union because they wouldn't fight. Now we can't stop fighting. We're losing our people, our resources, our humanity itself. The empire is broken. The war is over. It's time to stop." But reports kept coming from the frontier. Species who had no voice in the Union. Small colonies facing raiders. Pirates taking advantage of the chaos. The empire might be shattered, but the splinter groups were still dangerous, and other predators were watching, learning. Commander Wu sat in his office reviewing intelligence reports. They were defeated, yes, but 3 of their former admirals had set up independent kingdoms. They still had ships, they still had weapons, and they were angry. "If we pull back now," one told him, "everything we fought for disappears. They will regroup. Others will see that humanity gives up when things get hard. The species counting on us will be abandoned." "But Mi Young is right too," Wu said. "We can't sustain this forever. Every week costs lives. How many humans have to die before we've paid enough?" That night Wu couldn't sleep. He walked through Bulwark Station's observation deck. Through the reinforced windows, he could see Earth ships coming and going. Supply vessels, medical transports, warships heading out to patrol sectors where no patrol had existed before. A family was watching the ships too. Refugees from Verdun Tii now living on the station. The children pressed their faces against the glass, pointing at the ships with excitement. "Your ships are beautiful," the father said to Wu. "They saved our lives." "They killed a lot of people to do it," Wu said quietly. "Yes," they agreed, "but they killed the people who were killing us. That matters, that means something." Admiral Dongmin called an emergency meeting of Earth's military command. Representatives from every fleet attended. The question was simple: continue or withdraw. "Our casualties are at 33%, one admiral reported. 1 in 3 people we've sent out has been killed or seriously wounded. We can't maintain this rate." "They are broken but not destroyed," another said. "If we stop now, they'll rebuild. In 10 years, we'll be fighting them again." "Then we fight them in 10 years, Mi Young said. She had been invited to present the peace position. "Maybe by then, the Union will have learned something. Maybe they'll actually help. But we can't sacrifice our entire generation fighting battles that might never end." "What do the people we've protected think?" Captain asked. "Has anyone asked them?" The room fell silent. It was a good question. Earth had fought to protect others. But had anyone actually asked those others what they wanted? Coordinated a survey of the species humanity had defended. Dozens of minor species who had been ignored by the Union. The responses came back within days. Every single one asked humanity to stay, not to conquer them, not to rule them, just to stand between them and the predators, to be the shield they needed. "We know you're paying a price," one leader said. "We see your casualty lists, we mourn your dead, but please understand, before you came we had no hope. That would have killed all of us. The Union would have debated while we died. You gave us life. That debt can never be repaid." Ambassador Jin read the survey results to Earth's government. The debate raged for weeks. Half the planet wanted to pull back, rest, recover. The other half believed the job wasn't finished. The decision was made when the colony sent a desperate message. Raiders were attacking. They had no defenses. They had 3 days before the raiders arrived. The Union was, predictably, forming a committee to study the situation. Captain Wu's ship was closest. She jumped to space without waiting for orders. By the time Earth Command heard about the crisis, Wu had already engaged the raiders and driven them off. 200,000 lived because one human captain decided that orders could wait. "This is who we are," Admiral Dongmin said in his next address to Earth. "We don't walk away from people who need help. Yes, it costs us. Yes, we're tired. Yes, we've lost good people. But the alternative is becoming what we despise, becoming like the Union, debating while others die." The decision was made. Humanity would continue, but they would do it smarter. They needed allies. They needed other species willing to defend themselves and each other. They needed to build something better than the Union. Commander Wu proposed the Bulwark Accords. Any species facing existential threat could petition Earth for protection. But there were conditions. They had to contribute what they could. Ships, resources, soldiers if they had them, support personnel if they didn't. This couldn't just be humans dying for everyone else. The first to sign were their entire military force was small, just 20 ships, but they offered them all. They contributed their advanced sensor technology. They provided manufacturing facilities. Other species added what they could. It wasn't much at first, but it was a start. A coalition of the unwanted and the overlooked. Species the Union had ignored, now standing together. Captain trained crews on human tactics. They were gentle farmers by nature, but they had seen their children slaughtered. They learned fast. They learned how to strike from ambush, how to target supply lines, how to fight without honor because sometimes survival required it. "I feel like we're corrupting them," confessed to Dr. Sora one night, "teaching them to fight like us, making them into killers." "You're teaching them to survive," Sora said. "That's different, and you're also teaching them the other part, how to know when to stop, how to treat prisoners, how to stay human even when you're fighting like an animal." On Unity Station, the Galactic Union watched all of this with growing concern. Some species saw opportunity. If humanity could defend the frontier, the Union wouldn't have to. Others saw threat. A military coalition outside their control, growing stronger every month. Ambassador Jin received an invitation to return to Unity Station, not as a member but as a guest. He accepted. The council chamber was exactly as he remembered. The same representatives, the same careful procedures, the same elder beings watching from above. They wanted to talk about the Bulwark Accords. They were worried about a military alliance forming without their oversight. "You could have been part of this," Jin said. "We asked you to help defend you voted no. We asked you to save you formed committees. Now you're worried that we're doing it ourselves." "We're concerned about stability," an elder said. "Your methods are aggressive, destabilizing." "Our methods work," Jin replied. "They are defeated. The species you ignored are safe. Where's the instability?" "You're teaching others to fight like you," a representative said, "to ignore rules and protocols, to use violence as a first resort." "We use violence as a last resort," Jin corrected. "But when it's needed, we use it effectively. That's the difference. You use it never, even when it would save lives. We use it rarely, but when we do, we don't apologize for surviving." The meeting ended without resolution. The Union wasn't ready to accept humanity's methods. Humanity wasn't willing to abandon them. The galaxy was splitting into two philosophies: civilized pacifism versus protective aggression. Back on Bulwark Station, Commander Wu gathered his senior staff. They had work to do. They were broken but not eliminated. New threats were emerging. The frontier needed protection. And humanity, despite its losses, despite its doubts, despite everything, was going to provide it. "We're not heroes," Wu told them. "We're just the people who showed up when nobody else would. That has to count for something." The new distress signal came from a species nobody had heard of. A small civilization of only 12 million people living on 3 moons around a gas giant. A warlord from the collapsed territories was demanding they surrender or be destroyed. Commander Wu looked at the tactical display. They had no weapons, no defenses, and no value to anyone except themselves. The Union would never respond to this. Too small, too remote, too unimportant. "Send the Fourth Fleet," Wu ordered, "and contact the ships. Let's see if their training is ready for real combat." Captain jumped to space with 6 human ships and 4 vessels. The warlord's fleet was small, just 5 cruisers, but they were enough to destroy an undefended civilization. When fleet arrived, the warlord tried to negotiate. "This is not your concern, humans," the warlord transmitted. "These people owe us tribute. Leave now and there will be no conflict." "They are under our protection," responded. "Leave now and you'll survive." The warlord laughed. "You protect everyone. You spread yourselves too thin. Someday you'll learn you can't save them all." "Maybe," said, "but today isn't that day. Last chance." The warlord attacked. It was a mistake. The human fleet destroyed his forces in 20 minutes. One of the ships took heavy damage, but the crew held together. They had learned from human instructors. They knew how to take a hit and keep fighting. After the battle, received a transmission from the captain. "We did it, Captain. We actually did it. We protected someone the way you protected us." In that moment, understood what they were building. Not a human empire, a network of protection. Species who had been victims teaching themselves to be defenders, the cycle breaking. On Earth, Admiral Dongmin stood before the United Earth Assembly. The war had cost humanity dearly. 17% of their military was dead or wounded. The economy was strained supporting military operations across dozens of sectors. But he had something to show them. 43 species have signed the Bulwark Accords, he reported. They contribute what they can. Ships, resources, manufacturing, intelligence. We're no longer alone in this. The burden is spreading. "But we still carry most of it," Counselor Mi-young said. She had accepted that the war wasn't ending, but she fought to limit the cost. "Our children are dying to protect strangers." "Our children are dying to protect people who can't protect themselves," Dongmin corrected gently. "There's a difference, and those people are becoming less strange every day. They're becoming allies, partners. Eventually they'll be strong enough to defend themselves. That's the goal." "How long until that happens?" "I don't know," Dongmin admitted. "Maybe a generation, maybe longer, but it's the right thing to do." Ambassador Jin returned to Unity Station with a proposal. The Galactic Union and the Bulwark Alliance needed to talk, not about who was right or wrong, but about how to coexist. The galaxy was big enough for both philosophies. The elders received him in a private chamber. No crowds, no politics, just honest conversation. "You've destabilized everything," one elder said. "Species that were peaceful are learning to fight. Trade routes are disrupted. The old order is crumbling." "The old order let genocides happen," Jin said. "I'm not sorry it's crumbling." "What do you want from us?" "Nothing," Jin said. "We don't need your permission or your approval, but we'd prefer not to be enemies. The galaxy has enough violence. We're trying to reduce it, not add to it. By teaching others to fight like you. By teaching others to defend themselves. There's a difference. We don't conquer, we don't expand territory. We just stand between predators and prey. If the Union wants to do the same, we'd welcome it. If not, stay out of our way." The negotiations took months. The final agreement was called the Concord of Coexistence. The Galactic Union would maintain its territories and its methods. The Bulwark Alliance would operate in the frontier regions the Union had always ignored. If their interests crossed, they would communicate rather than conflict. It wasn't friendship. It was mutual acknowledgement. Two different ways of existing in a complicated galaxy. The real breakthrough came when the Union proposed a joint rapid response force. Union resources and logistics combined with Bulwark combat effectiveness. When the next crisis came, they would respond together. It was Commander Wu who was offered supreme command. "You want me to lead Union forces?" Wu asked, genuinely surprised. "We want someone who understands that the mission is protecting people, not following procedures," a Union representative explained. "That's apparently a human specialty." Wu accepted on one condition. His orders came from a joint council. Union representatives would advise, but they couldn't veto action when lives were at stake. After long debate, they agreed. Dr. Sora found herself training Union medical personnel. They were skilled but had never worked under combat conditions. She taught them how to perform surgery while the ship was taking fire, how to make impossible decisions about who to treat first, how to stay calm when everything was chaos. "Why do you do this?" a Union doctor asked her. "Your species fights so hard, loses so many. Why not just stop?" Sora thought about the children she had treated, the survivors, the families who sent thank you messages, all the people who were alive because humans decided their lives mattered. "Because someone has to," she said simply. "And because we can, maybe that's enough reason." Captain retired from active combat duty. He was made an instructor at the new Joint Military Academy on Bulwark Station. His job was teaching Union officers human tactics. Most of them were horrified by the methods. Some understood the necessity. "You're teaching us to be killers," one officer said during a simulation. "I'm teaching you to win," corrected. "There's a difference. In your simulation, you announced your attack and gave the enemy time to prepare. In a real fight, your crew would be dead. In a real fight, surprise and speed save lives. Your lives and the lives of those you're protecting." The officer was quiet for a moment, then said, "We've been fighting theoretical wars for thousands of years. You've been fighting real ones." "Yes," said, "and we'd like to stop, but that requires others to be ready to fight when necessary. That's why you're here." Ambassador Jin stood in the observation deck of Unity Station. It had been 2 years since he walked out of this place. Now he was back, not as a supplicant but as an equal. The galaxy had changed. Humans had changed it. A young diplomat joined him at the window. "My grandmother survived Verdun Tii because your people came. She says the thing she remembers most wasn't the rescue. It was that you cried for our dead." "Of course we did," Jin said. "They were people." Other species sent aid after. They were very professional and efficient, but only humans wept. She says that's when she knew you were different. You felt our loss as if it was your own. Jin watched a joint patrol launch from the station. Human and Union ships flying together. It was imperfect. There were still arguments and disagreements. Some Union species would never trust humans. Some humans would never forgive the Union for Verdun Tii. But they were trying. That had to count for something. "We're not civilized because we're peaceful," Jin said quietly. "We're civilized because we care when others suffer. We became uncivilized in our methods so that others wouldn't have to be. That's the burden we carry. That's who we chose to be." The diplomat nodded. "And that's why 43 species signed your accords. Why more join every month? Not because they fear you, but because they trust you. You proved that strength doesn't require cruelty. That power can serve protection." Far away, in human space, memorial services continued. Names of the fallen were read at ceremonies across Earth. Ships carried their ashes to the stars. Families mourned children who volunteered knowing they might not return. But those same families received messages from children who were alive, from communities rebuilding, from species they had never heard of on worlds they couldn't pronounce, saying thank you, saying you saved us, saying we remember. Captain kept a collection of those messages in his quarters. On hard days, when the costs seemed too high, he read them. Reminders that every sacrifice meant something, that every person who died protecting others had changed the galaxy. Commander Wu stood on the bridge of the Joint Rapid Response flagship. When the next crisis came, a mining colony under attack, both human and Union forces responded. They jumped together, fought together, and saved 12,000 miners from raiders. It wasn't perfect. The Union officers wanted to capture the raiders and try them properly. The human officers wanted to eliminate the threat permanently. They compromised, something both groups were learning to do. After the battle, Wu received a transmission from one of the miners. "You came, both of you, together. Maybe there's hope for this galaxy after all." Wu smiled. "Maybe there is." Years later, historians would debate what humanity's emergence meant for galactic civilization. Some argued humans had made the galaxy more violent. Others said they had made it safer. Both were probably right. But in the end, it came down to something simple. When people called for help, someone answered. When predators came, someone stood in their way. When the choice was between civilized debate and immediate action, someone chose to act. That someone was human, and that changed everything. Earth watched its children spread across the stars, not as conquerors, not as overlords, but as protectors, as defenders, as the people who showed up when nobody else would. It was costly, it was difficult, it was dangerous, but it was who they chose to be, and in the end, that choice defined them more than their capacity for violence ever could. The galaxy learned that civilization wasn't about being gentle. It was about choosing when not to be. And sometimes, the most civilized thing you could do was fight like an animal to protect those who couldn't fight at all. That was humanity's gift to the stars. Not peace, not harmony, but the promise that somewhere, someone cared enough to bleed for strangers. And that made all the difference.